All right, so we'll go ahead and get started here. I just made a quick presentation on this. It shouldn't be too terribly long, but we'll go ahead and get started. So if you guys have any questions during this, feel free to drop in the chat. I'll be able to see it. So whether you guys know it or not, which I'm sure you all do, there are many standards in Civil Air Patrol, and they are there for a reason. And you need to follow these standards to the best of your ability, because they are there for a reason. But let me ask you this: as leaders, why do we have to have standards? Why are they important? And what exactly constitutes a standard? Well, that's what we'll be diving into those questions here this evening. So make sure you guys take notes. So the first thing we're going to go over is why standards are important. So first thing, what is a standard? Well, it's an established requirement. It's a principle by which something can be judged. It gives the team an idea of what's expected of them. It gives them something to shoot for. And secondly, standards are benchmarks. Standards also give leaders the ability to compare team members to each other and see who is underperforming and not meeting those standards. Without standards, it would be awfully difficult for the leader to see who's underperforming and help that person out to accomplish the mission. Standards are also in place to help accomplish the mission. Standards are almost always there for reasons. So whether you know that reason or not, you still have to try and follow those to the best of your ability. Now, should leaders have standards? Well, great leaders have standards set for themselves and their people. In my opinion, good leaders have standards. They should have standards set for themselves and for their people. If a leader doesn't set standards for themselves, they can become inconsistent, and their followers may lose respect and lose admiration to actually follow them. And at the same time, if a leader doesn't create standards for their team, the team dissolves into nothing but chaos, and they have no set in stone way to actually accomplish the mission. They don't have a path to get there. Like I said, standards are created to help accomplish the mission. If there are no standards, it's going to be awfully difficult to get that accomplished. Now, one of the most important standards that leaders have is their own example. The leader's example is the most important standard that a leader can set. Think about it. If you're a brand new cadet, you're trying to fit in and be like everybody else, and the leader, whether it be your flight sergeant, your flight commander, first sergeant, any of the deputies. Excuse me one moment. Any of the deputies, could be myself, could be the cadet commander, or any senior member. If any of them are immature or if they're unprofessional, what kind of example does that set for that new member? Doesn't set a very good one. The leader's example is the most important standard that you can set for the leaders that are in the squadron right now. My line staff, even my deputies, first sergeant, for you guys, your example is extremely important for the future leaders, for the airmen that are coming up who are wanting to get into a staff position. Start setting a good example right now. We see that you're setting a good example for your fellow cadets, and you're setting a good example in general. We see that, and you're more likely to get put in a staff position. We want people who set good examples for themselves and for their fellow cadets. Standards and the military. What kind of standards are in the military, and how does it intertwine? How does it combine? Well, okay, so there's this line, and it, as you can see here, it's line 6, sir, and it's said that line is said by the tomb guards at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and the 6th line of the Sentinel's Creed is, my standard is and will remain perfection. Why is this important? Well, this creed states that the tomb guards have a standard, and that standard, the standard that is mentioned, is perfection. This standard that has been communicated and memorized by all tomb guards gives them something to shoot for to accomplish their mission. That their standard is perfection, and all Tomb Guards know that. It has been communicated. They have memorized it. They know it by heart. That is their standard. And the military has a lot of the same standards as CAP does, and there's a reason for that. Like I've said several times during this presentation already, the standards are there for a reason. Cannot stress that enough. They are there for a reason. They are there to create a path to actually get the mission accomplished. Whether you don't know the reason for that standard or not, maybe you don't agree with it, it is there for a reason. You need to try and follow it. Leaders, you guys need to set the standard for the team. All right. So I've said it several times before, but just you guys have to set the example. You have to actually set the standards and actually enforce them. What standards? So we kind of know why standards are important. We know why they're there, but what are the standards that are actually there for us as cadets right now? Where are the standards found? Standards in Civil Air Patrol are actually mostly found in our regulations and in our manuals. They are found everywhere. We have all kinds of manuals. That is crazy. A few, you got Cap R 60-1, paragraph 2.2, specifically for cadets at least. It states, I think it's titled Standards for Cadet Behavior, and that is a standard for us as cadets, and I'll actually read that in a little bit here. Cap M 39-1, that's another, all kinds of standards in there. And then Cap P 60-33, there's all kinds of standards in there. Cap P 60-33 is our drill and ceremonies manual. And obviously Cap M 39-1 is our uniform manual. All kinds of standards in there that we have to follow, whether you knew it or not. Those are standards. They're there for a reason. We have to follow those standards to the best of our ability. They're there for every person to actually read during their own time. There is no excuse for not knowing something in today's day and age with the internet. If you don't know something, you can look it up. So look it up, go into those manuals, actually read them, and try and follow the standards that are already set in place for us. I'm going to read this standards for cadet behavior, seen here, Cap R 6-1, paragraph 2.2. It states that CAP expects every cadet to behave as a responsible adult. And I think I have slides here further on. Here you can see standards can also be communicated through memorandums or verbal communication outside of manuals and regulations. Here we go. Okay, so what are some of the standards? Remain professional while in uniform. That kind of ties into what I just said. CAP expects every cadet to behave as a responsible adult. Wear uniform properly, customs and courtesies. Continuing on in Cap R 6-1, accordingly, cadets must treat one another, their senior members, and all persons with common courtesy and respect. Cadets will not insult or mock other members and will not use racial, cultural, or ethnic slurs at any time. Cadets will conduct themselves in an appropriate and professional manner at all times while at CAP meetings or activities. Cadets will not engage in inappropriate touching or public displays of affection by kissing, hugging, or holding hands or similar conduct while in uniform. Abusive behavior, hazing, and bullying are also prohibited. That is a clear and blatant communication of a standard set for us as cadets, and we need to follow that. So there's all kinds of standards like that found in all these regulations. We need to try and follow them to our best abilities, and the only way that we can do that is to actually know the standards. So in order to know the standards, you actually have to get in the regulations and actually read them. The core values and cadet oath as standards. You may not have thought about it this way at all, but our core values and our cadet oath are standards for us as CAP members and cadets. The core values being member-wide. All the members have to abide by the core values, and the cadets have to abide by the cadet oath. And I think even the senior members have a senior oath. I don't know it. But these are standards set for us, and they're clear. They're out there. We memorize them. We know them by heart. We say the cadet oath at the end of our meetings now. You've probably had the core values drilled into your head. There's a reason for that. These are our standards. Just like the Tomb Guard's creed and how it outlines their standards, we have our own cadet oath that outlines our standards, along with our core values that guides all of our members. The cadet oath is packed with all kinds of things that we are supposed to do. You can name a few in chat if you like, and I can read them out. We'll do it that way. Somebody say some standards that are in the cadet oath that are there for us to kind of that are there to guide us. What are some standards that are put in the cadet oath? Obey officers. That is a good one. Yes, the cadet oath says that I will obey my officers. That is one standard that is put in that cadet oath that we all need to try and abide by. Any others? Wearing the uniform properly. Yes, good. That is another standard that is set forth in the cadet oath, and how you do that, how you wear your uniform properly, is actually by going into CAPM 39-1 and reading it. Sergeant Cook said to advance my education and training. Yeah, it says to advance my education and training rapidly to prepare myself to be of service to my community, state, and nation. These are all standards that are set forth and made obvious to us. They are serve faithfully. Yeah, that's another good one. These are all standards that are made obvious to us, and they are there to guide us towards something. I don't know why it did that, but they're there for us. They are there for a reason. They are there to help us actually accomplish our mission and be good citizens and model members of the Civil Air Patrol. So when you look at the cadet oath and think that these are all kinds of standards and you need to follow these standards, that's exactly what that oath is. What about the core values? What are some of the, somebody name a core value in the chat? Respect. Yeah, good. It even says it in the in that paragraph that I just read to you. It mentions respect several times. Respect is one of our standards. We must respect each other. Excellence. That is another great one. We're looking for one more core value. Cadet Calhoun said integrity. Those are, and volunteer service. Excellent. Good job. These are all standards that are set for us and that we have all memorized. Everybody is taught these core values from the moment that they first join. So whenever you're trying to think about what standards are there for me as a Civil Air Patrol member, as a cadet, those are some of the most obvious standards that you have. The core values are also arguably one of the core values and the cadet oath actually are arguably some of the most important standards that Civil Air Patrol has set forward. Another just quick reminder, if there's any questions, feel free to just ask them in the chat and I'll get to them. Actually, I already covered all those. Point number 3. So leaders actually giving standards. Leaders and future leaders, you must give standards, okay? At the very least, make these standards for yourself. Make some standards for yourself so you remain consistent. Like I said, if you do not remain consistent, people will lose an admiration to follow you and may lose some respect for you because you aren't remaining consistent. You need to set standards for yourself. Say, I will never do this. I will always do this. Set some standards for yourself at the very least. Without standards, your team will run wild. You won't know what they're doing, and your mission will not be accomplished. As a leader, you're one of the biggest thing for you to do is get your people together, inspire them, get them working towards a common mission, and actually get that mission accomplished. It is in the Air Force's definition of leadership. It's the art and science of influencing and directing people to accomplish the assigned mission. That is your job as leaders. If you don't assign standards, you don't set them, you don't communicate them, and you don't enforce them, your mission will likely not be accomplished. So setting standards as a leader is very, very important. How do you actually set standards? So we know why we need to set standards. We know what some of the standards already set for us are, but the need for certain standards varies from squadron to squadron, from group to group, from wing to wing, from region to region, yada, yada, yada. Each echelon needs different standards. So how do you actually implement and start different standards? We have different standards in our unit than maybe other units in Group 1 does. Farrier, Lake County, Lafayette. Those are some, cadet and composite squadrons within Group 1, and they more than likely have different standards just because they work for how their squadron operates. So how do you actually set standards? How do you get them rolling? And how do you actually implement them into something? Well, first you need to actually, obviously, you have to create the standard. You have to figure out what the problem is. You need to figure out what the mission is and the best way to accomplish that mission. You need to actually figure out what that standard is going to be. Once you have that, you have it written out and everything. You need to actually communicate the standard. You need to get it out to everybody. You need to make sure that everybody knows it. If people don't know the standard, it is on you as a leader because you didn't communicate it properly. You can't get mad at your people for not knowing a standard if you didn't communicate it properly. And lastly, you need to actually enforce the standard. They may know the standard, but they may just brush it off or they may completely forget it. You need to actually enforce it. You need to stay on top of people and make sure they're actually going to get done. An example of a new standard that we implemented in the unit. It's one of the first things I did when I became the cadet commander. Is I sent an email out to all of you, and I even put it in the squadron's Discord. Is we changed the PT uniform, right? You all remember that? It's been in the emails for the last several PT nights, and when the next PT night comes up, it'll be in the email again. We changed the PT uniform from the Kelly green shorts and the black t-shirt to the black shorts or black bottoms and then the sand t-shirt. We changed that standard. I created the standard. I communicated the standard to all of you, and we're enforcing the standard. We won't really start actually getting on you guys and actually enforcing the standard until the date where I guess our old one is phased out, quote unquote. But when that time comes, we will be enforcing that standard. So that's how you actually get standards set in motion, how you actually get them implemented. I don't know why it keeps doing that. I'm sorry about that. Okay, what's the bottom line? Okay, there are standards in Civil Air Patrol, and they're there for a reason. You must follow the standards that are outlined in all regulations and manuals. Standards are important for your team and yourselves as leaders because it gives the team something to aim for and gives them a chance to be unified and work together towards accomplishing the mission. Cannot stress that enough. They are there to accomplish the mission. Standards are important because they give the team something to aim for. As leaders, you need to set standards. So if there's any questions that you guys have for me, feel free to speak up or drop something in the chat, and I'll be able to answer that. Cadet Buckner wants to know what is in the rest of CAP R60-1. CAP R60-1 is the cadet program's management regulation. So there's all kinds of standards set in there about the cadet program. So if you ever wanted to know more about it or something like that, you could actually take a look at it. It's actually quite informative. What is a personal standard that I have? That's tough. Let me get back to you on that one. Hold on. So what happens if you cannot get the assignment in on time? Try and get the assignment in on time. Think of the due date as a standard. You need to get that done if you can. If not, if you can't get an assignment in on time, ask for an extension. You can ask me directly if you can have an extension for it, and I'll more than likely give you an extension. I don't really care. I just want the homework in. All right, going back. What is a personal standard that I have for myself? Well, okay. Is it for myself or would it be for other people? For myself. Okay. So ever since I first joined, almost 5 years ago, yeah, Captain Howard said mine would be to lead it by example. That's an excellent standard. Ever since I joined Civil Air Patrol almost 5 years ago, some of the things that I told myself is I'd promote as fast as I can, and I would try to always set a good example for other people. I would always try to be the best cadet that I can be, whether that be growing in my knowledge, wearing my uniform to the best I can, growing in my drill and ceremonies, growing in leadership skills, public speaking, delegation, all this stuff. I told myself that I'll try to be the best cadet that I can be. I wanted to be a role model for all the other cadets. I didn't want to be a cadet who's mediocre or a cadet who just sat there and didn't interact for the entire for every meeting that I went to. So that's a standard that I set on myself from when around the time I first joined, and that's still a standard that I hold today. Any other quick questions? %80 is your passing grade for the AE test.